So West Ham have sort of leaked their reasoning for keeping Julen Lopetegui on for one more job, one more game. And I don't know if you saw the press conference ahead of the Wolves game, Lopetegui, but he did not look in a good way. He did not look well. It was a hard watch, it has to be said. He looked broken, if I'm being honest. He looked absolutely broken. I've no doubt that West Ham probably thought they were doing him a favour by allowing him to have one more game. But watching him in that press conference, I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. And I've got to say that having someone not laid into him, I don't think I've said anything that wasn't particularly football related over the past few days. I just don't. It's not nice to see a man being put in that position. I don't know if you've seen it, but basically one of the person who asked the first question, he said to Lopetegui, he said, "How are you?" And Lopetegui, he knew what the tone of the question was saying. So basically, the first interviewer was saying to him, "You don't look well, mate." And it was a tricky question, and it was a loaded question, and Lopetegui knew it was a loaded question. So he said, "I'm fine, thank you. How are you?" And the guy didn't answer back. The interviewer didn't answer back. He didn't say, "Well, I'm fine." He just nothing, and he fired again with the next question, which was ill-mannered. It was ill-mannered, and it was very much him saying, "I'm not here to talk about me. We're going to talk about you." And it was the sort of forthright line of interviewing that I wish the press had been doing all season on footballing topics. There's been so much stuff that Lopetegui has got wrong tactically, and I've spoken on his channel on numerous occasions how he's been allowed to get away with not saying stuff in press conferences, and I've wanted the journalists who are involved in the press conferences to follow up with a follow-up question and say, no, can we please, the Edson Alvarez debacle against Chelsea is a great case in point. It was really, really bad tactically. He was pulled up on it. He tried to brush it under the carpet. They should have come back with another question. They should have asked him why he thought it was a good idea to play in that way. What was his tactical thinking? And so many times the press have let him off the hook for footballing reasons. Yet when it comes to him personally, they were prepared to push it and push it and push it a little bit more. I didn't particularly like it, truth be known, but I thought it was an uncomfortable watch because clearly he wasn't well. And I don't blame him, by the way. Apparently his dad, his father is in Spain and like really ill. I don't want to say terminally ill because I don't know, but apparently he's really, really ill, and this must be very tough for him. But in which case, I do wonder, why did he beg for the job? Because that's what we hear that he did. He begged for his job. He begged for one more game. And I couldn't help but contrast the way Gary O'Neill was in his press conference with Lopetegui. If you want to know what the difference is between the two, Gary O'Neill hasn't even spoken to the Wolves hierarchy. Now, I don't know which one's best, but he didn't look as downbeat and dejected. So they haven't told him, you've got one more game or you're out. But it would appear the West Ham board have told Lopetegui, you've got one more game or you're out. But I couldn't help but look at it and think, you were better off not telling him at all or sacking him. It's this halfway house thing that is a little bit of indecision. I'll tell you what the board have said, or what they've sort of leaked. They leaked that they felt that keeping Lopetegui on was morally the correct thing to do. And the reason that they've said that is, I think the justification was that we'd had a record number of shots on goal during the game against Leicester, so they felt morally it was the right thing to do to let him carry on. I don't think morals come into it. That's not morals. If you're going to do something morally, you just look at the broken man in the press conference. Sometimes people need to be put out of their misery. And over the last few days, I've argued technically and from a managerial perspective why Lopetegui should be sacked. Actually, what I'm going to say today is he should be sacked for his own good. I mean, he must have some really, really strong belief to believe he can turn it around. But I don't particularly want to hear it fed back that he has begged for his job. I don't think it's a good thing to hear. I don't like hearing it. But it's been said that I always want information. I want information from the club. I want to hear what's going on behind the scenes. But there's sometimes That thing, too much detail. I think that may be too much detail because it makes him sound pathetic and it makes him, sound like the orphan Oliver saying, please, sir, can I have some more with a begging bowl out? I don't think it's a particularly good look, and I don't think it can really be construed as an act of mercy to put him forward against all those sports journalists who, I'm going to say, who suddenly found their bollocks, basically, having not had any for quite some time. And I don't know. I just thought it was a really, really bad look. And one of the reasons that it's been given is for all these shots that we've supposedly had on the Leicester goal. However, it's also been relayed back that the board are fully aware of how disorganised the team are defensively. And I couldn't help but think, well, have you not put two and two together? Have you not perhaps appreciated that the reason we are crap defensively is because it's open. I don't think you're going to get both. I don't think you get the record number of Premier League shots that we've ever had and a tight defence. So, I mean, look, this is not going to be the most brilliant tactical observation you've ever heard, but maybe, just maybe, because everyone was off attacking, it was left open at the back. Lopetegui doesn't know how to organise his defence whilst having a free-flowing attack. That is evident. And we've been given the key. We've been given the key code. We now know why. Because they asked him to play a more attacking game and create more chances. And look, I've said this. In fact, I am going to repeat myself because I think it's worth saying. Because it sounds so preposterous that West Ham knew we needed to attack more. So we hire a defensive coach. We identify a defensive coach who has a history of playing defensive football. And we say to him, we want to hire you. You're our guy. Can you play attacking, please? Of course he's going to say yes. Look, he really wanted a Premier League job. He's going to be getting good money. Let's be fair. Everyone's written something on their CV at some point in time that maybe didn't deserve to be on there. Everyone's going to talk themselves up to get a job. Now, I think football's a little bit different because they didn't have to worry about what he was going to say. They should just know what he is. So they shouldn't have needed to ask him whether he could play attacking football. There just was no evidence there from before that he was able to do so. So they've put him in this situation and asked him to do a job which he wasn't really qualified to do. Lo and behold, he gets there and he can't do it. And the dynamic of that relationship has now shifted completely. As it would, it doesn't have to be football. Any working relationship, any relationship, anything at all. If you have one person who's absolutely begging another, please, one more chance, last chance, and the other person saying, okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. The whole dynamic of the relationship has shifted anyway. You've got somebody that's desperate, and by the way, Lopetegui looked absolutely desperate. And it's completely changed the power balance, way past anything that's healthy. I can't even begin to comprehend. Well, I can because I've tried, but I was going to say I can't begin to comprehend how that dynamic plays out. Bearing in mind, everyone at the club knows. Everyone knows. The journalists know. All the players know. Tim Steiter knows. Everyone knows. There goes Lopetegui. He's got one game left. The pressure on that game. You're better off being Gary O'Neill, are you not? Is that not a better... I think it is. I think that's a better position to be in. Ignorance is bliss, so they say. I don't know how he's going to manage it. I watched that press conference, and I wouldn't say I was hoping for anything because hopes and expectations for Monday's game are so aligned with my hopes and expectations for the club as a whole. Almost anything could happen in that game on Monday, and I still sort of think the club's screwed at the moment just because everything has been exposed, hasn't it? All the warts and all the way the club operates, I think, has been exposed in the last, 72 hours, whatever it is. All the muddled thinking, all the indecision, just everything has been exposed, and now we're seeing it. So I think almost it doesn't matter what happens against Wolves. We are incredibly poorly run. I don't believe that it was a unanimous decision, a unanimous board decision. I really don't. I think the decision was split. How could it be? How could it be a unanimous board decision? I'm going to try and name as many of the board members as I can now. And I would... Did you hear that? Hear that chopper going over? I don't know if you can. I don't know if the microphone's picking it up. You probably can't, can you? Anyway, I think... So we got Vanessa Gold, Dan Cunningham, Jack Sullivan. I don't know if David Jr. is on the board, possibly. Obviously, David Sullivan Sr., Terence Brown. There's more. There is more, by the way. And then you've got... I would imagine they all... I'd imagine they all did... Karen Brady. I would imagine they all did what David Sullivan wanted. The one thing we don't know is how Trip Smith and how Daniel Krasinski voted. I find it very, very hard to imagine that all of those people could be totally aligned in their thinking. And it wouldn't surprise me if the two non-English people in the Czech Sphinx, as they call it, and the American in Trip Smith were probably more aligned with the thinking of the fans, which is ironic, isn't it, really? That the people most detached from how the fans feel were probably the British board members. I don't know. I've made that up. That's me completely guessing, but it's sort of in my own head. It makes sense, at least. And the reason I think they would be aligned with how we're thinking is because it makes sense. Even from a business point of view, it makes sense. When you're looking at somebody like Daniel Krasinski and indeed Trip Smith. Trip Smith is a broker. Trip Smith is a hedge fund manager. Trip Smith is independently wealthy, and they've made his money outside of football. The same is obviously true of Krasinski, who I'm not going to start listing all his businesses and stuff like that. Would be here all day, but you understand he is not a billionaire because he invested in football. So these people are used to negotiating deals, used to assessing whether something is going to be successful, probably got their fingers on the pulse in terms of when a company is failing, when a company is succeeding, when to sell, when to buy, when to invest, when to act. You'll probably find Trip Smith and Krasinski have not got to where they are by acting in the way that West Ham have been acting in the last few days. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at it thinking, what the hell is going on here? I made the observation yesterday. It's antiquated. It's completely antiquated. Really, really antiquated the way we're doing things. And I've got to say, it seems a bit gutless as well. And I think the thing that's most disturbing about that is whilst it is gutless and there's a lack of decision making there, the person that has got to front it up is the person that's probably most broken. Look, Lopetegui's asked for this. He's begged for that. But sometimes, as I say, people don't know what's best for themselves, and I don't. I think it was for the club to look at that. Are we honestly saying he's got a different look, a different dishevelled look today to what he had yesterday? It must have been a tough day for him yesterday. They should have looked into the whites of his eyes and said, "Look, sorry, Julen, we've already made the decision. You got to go." And the fact that there wasn't, it maybe not worked out with Potter or Terzic or anyone else that they might have tried to hire, should have played no bearing on it, because it was very much a case of, we've decided you're not the man for us anymore. They know. If you were to ask them in their heart of hearts, is Lopetegui the man to turn us around and can he get us top 10 this season? They would say no. In their heart of hearts, if you put a gun to their head, they would say no. Because they know, I can't imagine there's any real faith. There might be a little bit of hope, but no real belief. There's no statistics. There's nothing to back it up at all. There's nothing to suggest that West Ham have made the right decision here. And he had the look of somebody that knows nobody wants him. He's always known the media don't want him. The media have always been, lots of them, most. Let's say, look, I'm not saying every person in the media is bad, but let's say the vast majority in the media have been so pro Moyes. He's going to have known for some time that he wasn't welcome. I just find the whole thing a completely It's left a sour taste in the mouth, and that's me. I'm detached. That's not me in the press conference at all. I just find it completely ironic, really, that the word morally was used, and how the club, in their quest to look decent, have actually ended up doing something which looks incredibly indecent.